Hey, I'm Elle. I'm a five-time Australian representative swimmer, Paralympian. I won a gold medal when I was 14, and now I work as a psychic intuitive business mentor.
I mean, love to unpack there straight off the bat.
Yeah.
Elle was a good swimmer because she used to kick my ass. Because I used to be a good swimmer.
I
You know
remember
Angus?
you. I remember
No.
you.
I remember you too.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad we're mutual. So one of my claim to fame, Angus, which I don't think you know, is in the different classifications of swimming, there's like 10 for physical disabilities, some for intellectual, vision, everything. I've still got the S5, which is my class, under 12, 50-metre butterfly. It's grand record. Still got it, Gus.
That's amazing.
If I swam 50 metres butterfly right now,
You drown.
I would drown. No, not kidding. Like, I wouldn't be able to do that. How did I do that when I was 11? I got no idea.
You just had the athlete. The athlete was deep
Sorry.
inside you.
Nah, I don't know. How did you get into your amazing career swimming and the stuff you're doing now? How did you swim for that long? Did you not get sick of it? Like, I feel like it's a sport where you get over it pretty quickly.
I just felt, I don't know. Like, I mean, I'm sure I got sick of like getting up and training and being wet all the time. And my mates used to say that I smelt permanently like chlorine, and but it was just so much part of who I was. And really, like, it's funny because the only reason I retired was because of injury. So I probably would have kept on going. But then I played wheelchair rugby, and I'm glad I did that. Like, that was a really good. I shouldn't have done it for my body's sake, but playing it was probably one of the best things I ever did, like the best decisions I ever made. So, yeah.
It is weird, the mentality of people who are swimmers. I've got a couple of mates who do professional Ironman racing, so they get up at 4 a.m. and are in the pool by 5. And I've got one mate who's just retired, and he's saying that he's hated swimming. That's been part of the training that he's hated the most. But he's already finished his last session. And he called me just yesterday, and he said, "I think I won't miss the swimming, but I will miss the quiet, and I'll miss the chasing the black line."
Yeah.
And he's like, I feel so comfortable in a pool. I know how many strokes it takes for me to get to the end without even thinking. He's like, I could close my eyes, swim a lap, tumble turn, and hit it right at the mark because it was so familiar to him. Was that part of it for you? I mean, we'll get into your disability in a second, but for you, was that a comfort?
Yeah, absolutely. And it was the thing that I really noticed, especially during the last couple of years when I couldn't get out and even just be in the water or go in the surf or anything like that, was this feeling of congestion in my body because my joints are all sitting on top of each other. And so I just felt like I was like this hard ball of kind of stress, whereas in the water, I always kind of felt really elevated and like open, and I float. So I kind of bob along, and it just felt like freeness. And I used to say when I jumped in the water, when my body hits the water, my worries wash away. And that was just what a kind of a mantra I would say when I hopped in the water at every session. And yeah, the black line was like my bestie.
Guess what? Not changing my opinion one bit. That feel the same way. That's all lovely. Could not pay me enough.
I tried wheelchair tennis. Wheelchair tennis. Would never do it again. Terrible sport.
Everybody has exactly right. Everyone has different things they love. Before we get into disability, let's play in the space of sport because it's not my fault because I didn't give birth to me or make me at the exact time. But I fell right in between, obviously Sydney and now Brisbane Paralympics and Olympics. So I was 9 when the Sydney Games was on, obviously a bit too young to go, and I'll be 42, 41, but I'm retired. I'm not coming back. There's no comeback happening. But can you explain what that was like to be able to compete at a home Olympics or Paralympic Games?
It was super overwhelming, firstly, but it was amazing. And I feel like there were 53 swimmers on the team. I think there was like 400 and something people on the whole team. Going into the stadium, there's 100,000 people in the stands, and you know that your family's there. So like my whole family, my extended family, mates from school and stuff, because it was so easy to get to, they all came up and watched me. 5,000 people kind of watching you at the pool. I had like I think it was like 60 people connected to me in some kind of way come up and see me race. My whole swimming club came up. It was amazing. Like, you're in these little houses and, you know, it's like its own little world. Like, it's a village. So everything is really shut off from the real world. It feels a little bit like Big Brother, I guess, if I've never been in Big Brother, but that's kind of my assumption. Everything is really calculated. But it's not something I will ever forget. Like, it was, to be able to say that you went to Sydney is something that will be with me forever. I got the, the official Bogan / Sydney 2000 tattoo with the Southern Cross with Sydney 2000 in it. But it looks a little bit like it says Sydney Zoo, which my friend thought it did for a long time. She's like, she must really like Sydney Zoo.
I've never thought of that.
Yeah. But yeah, it was amazing. Like, I swam on the second day. So I was in the 400 freestyle. I swam in my heat. I came 12th. I broke a national record. I swam a pretty good time. And yeah, like, and then I got to kind of enjoy the village and just be like a 17-year-old and learn what it was like to be a really professional athlete. Like, that was actually, because, you know, that was so long ago. It was before we had sponsorship, and, you know, that was my first ever competition that everything was paid for. Before all of that, all of my international comps mum and dad had paid for. So it was a very different experience for me. I've still got all my uniform and it was something that will stick with you forever.
It is true. I mean, apart from swimming being a better sport than tennis, Dylan has spoken about, you know, in his lead up to Tokyo, that he, unfortunately, and I think Kurt McGrath was the same as well, with his canoeing and kayaking, that you guys were at the end of the schedule, so you had to watch people celebrating, drinking beers, coming down and watching. But with swimming, I mean, apart from being one of the greatest sports, especially in Olympics, because it's so tied to Australia, watching it in those first, you know, few days, and then you get to, you know, the monkeys off the back, you know, the chips off the shoulder, and you can really enjoy the moment. So that's really interesting to think about.
Celebrated with
Dylan's had the other experience.
Celebrated with the food court chicken nuggets, because Macca's is free there. Haven't eaten chicken nuggets pretty much since. So
why would you?
At the Rio Paralympics, when Heath, my doubles partner, and I won, we ordered 250 nuggets just because we could. Probably only had a handful, but when else are you going to get to do that?
Yeah.
And I know there was someone who'll text me, food wastage. I'm like, you know what? For that experience, I don't care.
No, it goes. You earned it.
Elle, so obviously we know that you're a Paralympian, but I don't think we've spoken about what your disability is.
Yeah, so my disability is Arthrogryposis, a multiplex congenita, and you need to know how to spell it by the time you've finished this podcast. But it essentially...
Arthrogryposis multiplex congenita.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Say it. Let alone spell it. Don't worry
about
Wow.
Yeah, it's a fun one. And I've got club feet as well, and then I have my hand as well, which is not connected, but my hand's got a smiley face. If you can see, it works as a stamp. And essentially it means my cartilage is all like rubbed away because the bones all rub on each other. They're called contractural joints. They don't sit properly. The ball sockets don't flow together. And I've got it mostly in my ankles, my knees, and my hips diagnosed. But over the time, as I've grown, they've kind of realised I've got it everywhere, but just not as bad. So I'm a 35 surgery in so far. I had both my knees replaced, my ankle fused. I'm looking at another ankle fusion just to kind of manage pain and everything. But so swimming was really good for it as therapy. And I just pretty much used the chair all the time to get around. Whereas before, like in Sydney, the closing ceremony, I didn't take my wheelchair. I could walk that well, but now I don't really go anywhere without it.
So were you born then without parts of your hand, or did the cartilage rub away and then you got your fingers removed?
No, I made a fist within the womb and a piece of skin wrapped around it and held it there like an elastic band. And then because the two, like my pointer finger and my thumb were covered by the other fingers, they didn't grow properly. So they're both stumps and the rest of the fingers are kind of misshapen. So yeah, it's called amniotic band syndrome, and sometimes people have it where it might remove like a full limb, or it might, you know, like a leg or an arm or something within the womb. But mine's like would be a pretty, like, called a pretty mild version of it. So I've still got movement of the hand, but I'm right-handed, which I'm lucky because I don't really use it too much.
Have you had that conversation with your parents about their reactions? Were they pre-warned? Did the ultrasound show anything different?
Yeah.
Have you had that conversation about the birthing room?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. My dad loves to tell us about the story of the day we were born. So nothing came up on the ultrasound. It was a complete surprise. When I was given to Mum after it, they had wrapped me up in a blanket and put a glove over my hand so they couldn't see, because my legs were like all twisted. Like my left leg looked like a question mark. The bone was so bent and my feet were kind of facing in. So they wrapped everything up to hide it. And for a couple of days, I didn't know what it was. The doctor who brought me into the world, he said he thought it was arthrogryposis, but he wasn't sure. And then a specialist came a couple of days later and diagnosed me. And he was this amazing man who looked like the BFG. And he was my surgeon up until a couple of weeks actually before I made the Aussie team for the Paralympics. But he died just before I found out I made the team, so he never got to kind of find out. But yeah, he did all of my pre-surgeries and fixed my ankles. But it was, I think with my parents, like, they're amazing humans, and my little sister also had epilepsy as a kid as well. So we would go to appointments at the Children's Hospital together, and Mum would back the appointments onto each other, and so we kind of spend a lot of time there. But my dad asked my doctor really early on whether I would be able to walk, and this doctor said to my dad to kind of reassure him that he believed I could even dance. So it was always really a positive kind of the conversations were always really positive, like what Elle can do and not worrying about what I can't do. And it's my life and I have been always like that.
So were you always, like, you seem disability proud now, correct me if I'm wrong, in that journey, how did you go with that? Did you struggle with that in your teenage years? Do you still struggle with it today? Have you always been pretty comfortable with your disability?
I'm super comfortable now. I can say I wasn't comfortable. But when I kind of came to the end of my swimming career and started tapping into like mindset stuff, like positive mindset stuff, not athlete mindset stuff, and I went and trained to become a neuro-linguistic programmer. So I looked at lots of linguistics and the way we speak and the language and the words we use. And I realized that so much of my language I used around my disability was negative or in a space of victim or like apologizing for it. And when I kind of realized that, I was like flicking a switch, and so much of it changed for me, because I had all these really external things happening to me where people would say to me, like on the dance floor of a nightclub, if I was like you, I would have already killed myself. Or, you know, oh my God, it's so terrible that you're in a wheelchair, like no one will ever love you, and all this kind of stuff. But then when and of course, because I was reflecting that out into the world, but then when I moved my mindset, it was like those things started to drop away. And I've had moments in my life where that has come up again when I've felt crappy about it. But I don't know, I just feel so happy in myself and my body, and it is forever evolving, and I'm always in pain, and who knows what is next really. But it's given me so many beautiful things, so why would I not be grateful for it and just focus on the things that I can do with it, and the beautiful experiences. Like I think every experience has taught me. It's like a phoenix, like you rise from the ashes every time you have to go through something hard.
That's so true about the like, I never thought about this, but if you feel like an inconvenience in a room, like I'd always like, oh, sorry. Well, then you believe that you're an inconvenience in the room. I mean, and then you're like not having a good time because you feel like you're in the way. But if you're like, no, I'm meant to be here, and you don't say language like that, like don't apologize for taking up space.
Yeah.
And then I guess you act like that. That's a really good point.
Yeah.
Probably change my own language around my life naturally. I'm always learning from my own podcast, Angus.
Elle, one thing that's amazing about this, the reaction that we get from podcast episodes, and some things sometimes that we forget during it, is that for one, we do, we're now writing the the person's disability next to their name just because we're about 55 episodes in, or 56, 7. It's, people are choosing which episodes they want to listen to. And we recently had somebody who found Ashley Dolby, who has Friedreich's ataxia, I think I want to say. Anyway, so she has her daughter was born with the same disability, just Googled it into podcast, found us, and she's like, this has been amazing for me because I don't know what to expect. And now to hear from somebody with that lived experience, I felt this weight off my shoulders. To think that maybe potentially someone might have that same experience with you, because we've never spoken about your particular disability, is if there is a parent or somebody who's maybe younger or doesn't have that same mindset that you do around your disability, what would you say to them that could help them with their own mindset?
The thing that I've really learned from having this conversation with other people with arthrogryposis, which is there's not a lot of us, is that you can do whatever you want in your life. Sometimes people have thought that because of arthrogryposis and because it's not meant to be progressive, but it just kind of can't not be because of the way that the problems kind of happen with the cartilage and stuff, that will stop them doing the career that they want to. But I just am all about, if you desire to do something, whether it's be an athlete or be an artist or be a whatever, then just go and do it and figure it out. And if I can kind of encourage people just to follow that inner niggle, like that inner desire to follow their, like what they want to be and how they want to show up in the world, if they have arthrogryposis, then just do that. Or if they don't even have arthrogryposis, if they just have a disability, like just go and do it and say yes and work out how later. That's what I have done. And, back to not apologizing that you have to do it at a different speed, or that it might look a little bit different, because you'll get there in the end. You'll get to the point of how it's meant to be in the end anyway. So it's not really, I think it's just go out and do what you want to do, be who you want to be.
So obviously, apart from being an athlete and having a disability, you play in a different space as well. I'm going to be upfront. I have left my bias at the door for this stuff, right? Something that I don't normally buy into, right? So my bias is out there. Angus, where's your bias?
I'll leave it at the door with you, Dylan, even though I think we share common views.
Common views on this, but you got recommended by multiple people, by the way. I don't know if you know this. We had multiple people recommend you to come on the podcast, because not only have you got a great story, you're a great Paralympian, but you've helped people in the space that you play in now. Do you want to tell us a bit about this space, go into depth about what you do, some of the things that you can do? I'm out. All right.
It's okay. I used to have lunch when I worked at the VIS and the sports science guys were like, can you tell me the lottery numbers? And I'm like, doesn't work like that. So at the end of my swimming career, I had a shoulder injury and I went to all these Western medicine doctors and they told me that the pain was in my head and it was nothing. And so I, looking for answers, went to a spiritual healer, and she said, do you know you're psychic? And I'm like, yes, but I'm scared to talk about it because of reactions. And, it's wacky, like, to be able to call yourself that. And so she helped me tap into these abilities. So it can be as simple as knowing who's going to ring, knowing what people are going to say in an argument, having that gut feeling. It doesn't have to be like headscarves and incense, although I am burning incense as we talk. It doesn't have to be kind of that witchy woman at the fair who you pay $5 for a tarot reading. It's more about what are you feeling within your heart, and how can we get rid of all of those lack beliefs or those limiting beliefs, and then work with the energetics of it, which is essentially breath work, meditation. So yeah, I've worked in that space for 12 years. I run lots of online programs. And because I have a business degree and I worked a lot in business and events and marketing and PR and all that kind of stuff, I smushed them both together. And now I help predominantly people that work in that space build their businesses by tapping more into their intuition and their healing. And I've got my own healing modalities, and I do motivational speaking around acceptance of self through the healing adventure. We are doing this via a recording. We're all remotely in different places, but who has the better energy in your opinion, Dylan or myself?
Same question. Tell me about Angus's energy. Is what I was going to say. Give us both an energy reading.
Do you want me to give you a reading?
Yes.
So excited.
Okay, so Angus, they want you to tell. I'm going to tell you 3 things that you need to kind of think about for the week or for the next couple of weeks. So the first thing is what I get a sense of is you are much more grounded. Your energy is much more grounded than Dylan's. He is like a bit more up there, like up in the ethery energy. Yours is a bit more down. But what is happening in your life at the moment, or what is about to kind of come up in your life at the moment, is that you're going to be. It's like the path that you're walking on is not like a straight path. It's like a checkers, but you're only allowed to step on the black squares. So there's like, you're like wobbling, you're a bit wobbly back and forth. It's just as you kind of ground yourself back in. The second thing they want you to think about, and this is what I mean by it's like really, it can be really direct, simple messages, is that you don't have enough greens in your diet and your gut is, there's too much coarse, they're saying coarsery, but that's not a word. So there's like, it's too coarse within there. You need to have some more greens to flush some stuff out, and that will stop this pain down the side of your neck. And the third thing, I love that you guys are like trying not to laugh.
No, I'm into it.
No.
The reason is the first, you're actually like, I'm not kidding. You're on, especially the first one. Like, I want to hit the third one first.
Okay. I'm not laughing. I'm in my head. I'm hoping Dylan gets absolutely smashed. That's what I'm preparing myself for that, but I am listening.
I'm listening.
I'm listening.
I'm into it.
To who's ready to speak to Dylan out there? Let's get some points.
When you
out
said
there.
Dylan's up in the ethos, is that a negative thing?
No.
Let's ground this guy back. Come on.
So it just means that
being in the ethos is good.
Well, that's why I don't necessarily like particular types of healings that bring you down, because I sit up quite high cosmically, and it can be that you're a little bit floaty, but it's easier to tap into your intuition and stuff that way. So the 3 things I want you to think about this week is tell me about the driver's side of your car. Like, have you hit the door, or is the lock playing up, or?
I haven't, but I'm currently away, and my partner Chantel has my car, which normally means that something's going to go wrong. So if I go home and my car has something on it, I'm calling you and paying you whatever you need. Rest of your life. But I think it's in good nick. It's pretty dirty.
Also, it doesn't bode well for Dylan's sponsor, Kia.
Yeah. They're going to call me like, and if they believe in this stuff, they're going to like drop me as an ambassador. They're like, Dylan's so good. Oh, that's good stuff. I like it.
Oh, very good.
That's so funny, yeah.
The all-new Kia Sorento, everyone.
So the second thing they want you to think about is what is happening in your life is that they are continually trying to have conversation with you all the time. So when you get that niggle, or when you get these repetitive kind of messages from people saying things to you over and over again, follow the train. Follow, even if it feels super wacky, even if it feels off-brand, even if it feels like it's not something that you're meant to be doing, because there is something that is coming in, and it's going to kind of come in like a snowball, the energy of it's going to come in really, really fast, and you're going to have to make a decision really fast, and it will only lead you to more really beautiful, abundant things, like exciting things. So just follow the snowball, it's like a fire hose, like the rush of it.
I just wish that Dylan got, eat some more greens. He gets some beautiful spiritual transitional thing, and I get eat more greens.
You know why? Because I'm a better person. There's more in the ethos of the stratosphere. I'm in the, where am I?
I'm more grounded.
I'm in the cosmic stratosphere. Right?
Yeah, you are.
Up in the,
oh, God.
Difference.
But Angus is in the ground, grounded is good. Because if you're too,
unless it's grounded beef.
Yeah,
you eat less of that.
Yeah, we don't want that.
Exactly. It's yin and yang, Angus. We need a bit of both in this relationship.
Elle, we've reached that time of the podcast where we do the Bowl of Uncomfortable. This is a segment where people have sent us anonymous questions in this regard, so we will not be putting the names to the questions. But these are questions they wouldn't feel comfortable asking you to your face, but they obviously want to hear the reaction. And if you are comfortable enough to answer, that works for everyone, because I think these are some juicy questions. We've got one each. From 2 different people. I'll go first.
Yeah.
Do you think you use a world of fake magic and spiritual BS to disguise the fact that you are unhappy and can't explain why through physical and mental means?
Not at all. But amazing question. What an amazing question. No, because
Honestly, they're both rippers. You're going to love them.
I love this. No, because each their own. I don't really give a or I don't actually care whether people think it's BS because it's helped me anyway. So if they don't believe in it, that's totally fine. It's like I don't believe in people eating meat, but people still go and eat meat. And it's helped me so much. So, yeah, like I wouldn't be who I am, and I wouldn't have got through what I've got through with it in the way that I have, but also I believe so deeply in my own personal resilience that if I wasn't connected to some kind of magic or psychic or woo-woo thing, that I probably still would have got through it anyway. Yeah, that's a really amazing question. Thank you for whoever sent it.
Fair enough.
Great answer, Tick, and I agree. Like, if it works for you, do you, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You kind of answered this one, but I might do a follow-up to make it a bit relevant. How do you feel knowing you have vulnerable people paying you for practices you know are made up and fake? So you just explain that saying, well, you don't think they're made up and fake, so that's fair enough. But what about this? What if you get a misreading on them or you don't know? Do you still take the money or do you pay them back?
I don't take the money, but I also tell them that I don't know the answer, so they can either sit and we can read about something else if I don't have a specific answer or question, or we can just cancel the session. There's no skin off my nose. I don't mind. Oh, I'm not here to kind of prove anyone right. I'm not here to like tell you how you should live your life or prove you right through magic or cards or anything like that. I'm only here to help you feel comfort for you. That's what I want. And if I can do that through a conversation, whether it's connecting to source or, you know, those abilities, or whether it's just having like a conversation with someone who's a really good listener, then I'll do that. So it doesn't, it's about the person. It's not about me.
What does old mate, last question, what does old mate Yucky Guts O'Loughlin charge you for that invoice? Now that you've...
Yucky Guts.
Yucky Guts O'Loughlin.
Oh, mate, Yucky Guts. I am Elle Steele. That's your Instagram and your website. You can, of course, get around you for everything positive, everything psychic, and everything in between. But thank you for sharing your disability story and maybe, you know, a part of our future story as well, a prediction. So thank you very much for your time.
My pleasure. Thanks so much for having me.